Hey guys, welcome back for another YouTube video. This is going to be our daily cryptocurrency market update, and we are not going to waste any time. First of all, I just want to say I hope you all have a fantastic week and have had a magnificent Monday so far. But we have actually got quite a lot to cover in this video. We're going to be doing quite a bit of looking at the dollar. This is a dollar story, and we've retained and maintained that bias for a long time. And that actually at the moment is throwing a bit of a spanner in the works in terms of me being a crypto trader and trying to trade the crypto market, because we are showing, and we said this, we saw it on Friday, we saw it on Thursday, we even saw it over the weekend, we are showing as a market, as a crypto space, in my opinion, unwarranted and unprecedented strength given everything that is going on right now. Now, that makes me nervous shorting, because the question I have to ask myself is, why hasn't crypto rolled yet? Is it because potentially it's not going to? Or are we stalling? And we've looked at this head and shoulders pattern, which I have had some very smart individuals in the comment section come up with all sort of magnificent reasons. They most definitely hold Bitcoin as to why this is not a head and shoulders and technically doesn't meet the criteria. We are going to be talking about that. For those of you that aren't following me on Twitter, please go and do so, because I post more timely stuff. We will be looking at, this is Bitcoin's current structure. This is a head and shoulders structure, and I gave plenty of examples, plenty of technical examples of head and shoulders and where Bitcoin currently is, and the fact that I do think we are likely to see this play out. But there's a lot going on. We're going to talk about the fact that we had the highest number of puts bought and sold ever in one single day in the history of the stock market. Things are getting very volatile. People are taking their positions. It's why we're seeing this kind of equilibrium and potential sort of stalling or indirection for crypto at the moment, because there's a lot going on in other markets. Maybe that is simply the reason why Bitcoin hasn't rolled yet, because people aren't interested in shorting it here. They're interested in the big moves that are taking place elsewhere. And talking about big moves, how could we, and I'm not talking about myself here, how could we not talk about the pound sterling? I have been saying to you guys, and for my Patreon members, it's been basically a recommendation that we get into dollars. We hold our cash in the form of dollars or something that is pegged to a dollar, like a stablecoin. For this exact reason, the sterling has been absolutely killed by the dollar. And in actual fact, it's my opinion that you are going to have a dollar the same as a sterling in terms of value. They are going to be 1-to-1, almost a peg over themselves. That is extremely bad news. And the reason for this is because, and the reason we've been able to predict this and predict the fact that the dollar is going to continue to steam ahead in terms of the DXY, which is an index basically comprised of other currencies around it, like the euro, which is nearly 50% against, and the pound, which is a significantly less chunk, and you've got your Asian currencies in there. But essentially, the dollar is continuing to steamroll. It's very hard. The reason this throws a bit of a spanner in the works for me is because we did say on this candle, I wouldn't really want to long this here. But does that mean then I wouldn't want to short crypto because they're inversely correlated? So what kind of happens here? But with the pound, I mean, look at this. Is this a blow off top? I mean, you got a bit of a shooting star here. This is, of course, the US dollar against the pound sterling. I mean, it's just been insane. Since the US government has started upping interest rates, the dollar has gained 37% against the pound. And remember, we were calling, so we weren't calling this the whole way, of course, because we were actually still in crypto largely at 44k for Bitcoin. But really, you could have retained, just by being in pounds, round about 24% of your value. And why is this happening, by the way? Well, let me show you. Just like, we love to bring up our 30-day Fed fund rate. Let us, we'll do this another way, actually. We'll put this on there, and we will look for the Fed fund rate. So you can see as the Fed fund rate goes up, you could show this in an inverse correlation with the 30-day Fed fund futures. As this goes up, the dollar goes up with it. And when you have other currencies that have higher levels of inflation, like the UK, where I currently am, or the Eurozone, and they're doing less in terms of their interest rate hike to combat that, where do people go to? They go into the dollar. And it's the same for risk assets. Even though we have extremely high levels of inflation, you can see also Fed fund rate and the Bitcoin chart, but in actual fact, you're better off looking at the futures, which is pricing in interest rate hikes and expectation of them. There's more of a direct correlation between market top and a cool down. So right now, it's very much a dollar story. Whether this takes a rest here, I would expect it to be. I would expect a rest for the dollar. You weren't at these levels since 2001, guys. For goodness sake, and people are still going to call bottoms on Bitcoin, not understanding that, it's capitulation that I think we're heading for as a market, and I still think we've got to see that. By the way, if we didn't have the fears of everything that we have on the table, I'd probably be somewhat a buyer. Not all in by any stretch of the imagination, but I would probably start buying into certain cryptos at these prices if we didn't have the economic outlook that we do have, and if we didn't have all this absolutely insane, volatile, nightmarish price action across the board. So talking about this is very relevant, because why isn't crypto selling off? Well, is it because you have your traders in other markets at the moment capturing those moves? Potentially. Maybe crypto's become a little bit less interesting. And maybe it's, people are paying more attention to the FX market now, your other markets. This I found extremely interesting. This is from Gagavin. I really like Gagavin's Twitter, by the way. I think he's fantastic. On Friday, we had the highest number of puts bought and sold ever in one single day in the history of the stock market. So that's extremely interesting. We also had the highest puts to call ratio so far this year on Friday. Very, very interesting. This all has a lot to do with the dollar move. Also supporting the dollar move, in my opinion, this is going to support the dollar move because we know the central banking cartel hate the far right for whatever reason. The far right win big in Italy. Here's what that means for Europe. How are they determining what's far right and far left? What you've got to understand about your far right and far left is they are both very much ideologies, in my opinion, made to divide and conquer. They are both this part of the same bird, in many respects. And this whole kind of concept of, oh, you're far right, you're far left, you're this, you're that, you're whatever, straight, you're not, you're black, you're white. It's all about divide and conquer, in my opinion. Just as a bit of a side note, but this, in my opinion, is going to be quite bad for the euro. People will see this as negative for the euro, as negative for the euro stability, as there are talks about them leaving the European Union, Italy as a nation. That's also going to weaken the euro and see that sort of dollar dominance. I spoke about this with my Patreon members yesterday. I do a Sunday briefing where we look at the week ahead. This was actually a key event that we said, look, expect the dollar, even though we wouldn't long the dollar here, there's every reason for it to keep going up. And do we end up with this kind of double peak situation? Addressing the cryptocurrency market, now that we've, spoke about the FX market in great detail, this is essentially what I think we're looking at. I think we're looking at this head and shoulders. You're going to have to forgive me, guys. I'm on a laptop, so things are going to be a little bit out there. I think this is a head and shoulders, a very valid head and shoulders, despite, I don't know whose best wishes to try and discredit it, talking about it's only a reversal structure, it's only this, it's only that. This is what I do, guys. I am a market technician for all intensive purposes. It's how I make my living, okay? This, in my opinion, is a head and shoulders. It's very, very valid. The question that we've got is, do we get that second peak? You'll notice you had two peaks over on this left shoulder. Do we have that mirrored on the right shoulder? Potentially. Bitcoin hasn't sold off. I'd have expected Bitcoin to have well and truly lost the 18K level, given everything going on right now. Couple of reasons I can attribute for it not. It's at key support. It's at this neckline, so you're going to get resistance there, or support, I should say. Kind of low vol in regards to the fact that people are in other markets right now. Things are happening elsewhere that people are going to want to capture, so the crypto isn't really the hottest market to be trading right now. Certainly the FX market is capturing a lion's share of that. And also, you'll have a lot of vested interests in keeping this level, because once you break this level, you are entering, in my opinion, your next leg lower in a similar manner to the ones that we've seen thus far, where you get these kind of spills. So I do think this will fall. It's a very valid technical structure. Please go and look on my Twitter. I gave a whole array of Bitcoin currently in relation to your head and shoulders patterns, and you tell me if it doesn't fit that criteria and looks very, very similar to what we're calling a head and shoulders that is likely to lead to that further downside. So what is today going to bring? Well, I'm not sure. I do have some very small shorts on. In terms of putting large positions on right now, not interested. I don't have a good read on this whatsoever. Long term or mid term, we do think you are going to see further downside. There are reasons, we did say the FTSE yesterday on whenever it was Friday, we looked at the FTSE. We did say expect a bounce. We were up here for the FTSE and spilling. We said expect a bounce around this level, simply because it's previously acted as support and is acting as support here. Gold selling off today. It's not a particularly good sign, but you can see it's not a harsh. It's an indecision candle. I'm reading a great book on Japanese candlesticks at the moment. That I will certainly, if you guys want to find out what that book is, ask me in the comment section. I will reply. You got indecision here. This isn't a totally seller's day, if you will. You are getting pushback, and you're not that far from the actual open. Dollar, it's going to be interesting. What happens? Do we get some sort of an emergency? It's also very hard to trade at the moment because we don't know what governments are going to do as a result of this. They are likely to come out with emergency measures that we don't know the ramifications of, or what they're actually going to. We can guess the ramifications once they come out, but we can't preempt what they're going to say. And what they're going to say is going to move markets. So we're essentially trying to second guess the schizophrenic central banks of the world. Very, very, it's going to be an interesting day. But your futures market is down for the S&P, the NASDAQ. Looking at this, you have seen buyers come in here for the NASDAQ, and you could have some sort of a double bottom situation, thus a rally. This kind of ties in with our Bitcoin thesis that maybe you get this second peak here, and you come up something like here. Come back, maybe you revisit 21k before then you put in that continuation to the downside, and you see that real slam that's volume driven when your other markets somewhat cool down. But it doesn't. The strength that Bitcoin's seen here is annoying, because it kind of makes me think, okay, well, now I have to ask the question, why do we have this strength? You can't rule out the fact that maybe it is because there's a trade coming to the upside. Although I wouldn't bet on it. I don't think I'm even interested in taking along if we do get this as support. Let the scalpers, let the sort of micro traders have that. We'll look for the short on the other end of it. So that is really all I've got for you guys. It's going to be a very, very interesting day. It's going to be super interesting to see how the NASDAQ open. Also, your S&P is at a very similar situation. We've been calling since here, ladies and gentlemen, for further downside on the NASDAQ. Since round about 4,000, the S&P 4,293, round about here, which is very likely. Once we got this break, you came up, you had a perfect retest off it. We've seen 2 retests now, beautiful rejection before we see that downside, and we do still believe that you are in a 2008 trajectory, following it perfectly. We also actually very accurately called the fact that you were going to have a bounce on your 200 weekly moving average. Was not a hard call. Reason you were going to have a bounce is because we get a bounce, and we've had a bounce there since 2008 because the Fed's had your back. The Fed no longer has your back. They're going to let you fall over and hit your head. Be ready for it. If you're with me, you are ready for it. You know what's coming. Guys, there's some absolute killer opportunities to be had out of what I think is coming. Stick with this channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I'm going to love and leave you on that note. If you have enjoyed the content, a like is always appreciated. So is a comment, and I really do wish you all the best week. Thanks a lot for watching, guys.